3,
Hi, Farid.
2, we are live.
Yeah. Welcome, board members. Yes, Farid.
Yeah, Lawrence, I'm just going to say my apologies. I'm trying to connect by video, but I couldn't, so I'm calling in. So my apologies.
Okay.
Thanks.
Fine, yeah. Welcome, board and committee members, staff, and our online attendees. I hope everyone had a nice weekend. We have no deputations today. I would like to recognize that yesterday, September 2nd, was Somavati Amavasya, which is a significant day in Hinduism dedicated to ancestor worship and spiritual growth. Also, September is World Alzheimer's Month, where we raise awareness of dementia and address the stigma and discrimination that still exists around the condition. Saturday, September 21st is World Alzheimer's Day, where we encourage you to wear the color purple to show your support. As well, Saturday, September 7th is National Ukrainian Heritage Day. Today's agenda will focus on enterprise risk management framework and our 2025 budget update, as well as a few other agenda items. We will be going into a closed session later in the agenda. With that, I'll go to our next agenda item. That's item number 2, Land in African Ancestral Acknowledgements. Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with the multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. We also acknowledge all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those who were brought to these lands as a result of transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. We will now proceed to agenda item number 3, that's approval of the public meeting agenda. Are there any amendments for today's public agenda? Hearing none, may I someone move that the September 3rd, 2024 AFRC public meeting agenda be approved as presented?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
So
Moved by Warren.
I beg to second.
And seconded by, I see Councillor Crisanti as well. Thank you both. With all in favor, that motion carried. We will now proceed to item number 4. That's a conflict of interest. May I call for any declaration of conflict of interest? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 5. That's approval of AFRC's public session minutes of June 12th, 2024. Are there any amendments? Hearing none, may I have someone move that the June 12th, 2024 public session minutes be approved as presented?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
So
Moved by
moved, Mr. Chair.
And seconded by Farid. Thank you both. Be it resolved that June 12th and public session minutes as presented are approved. We will now move to item number 6. That's approval of the AFRC's closed session minutes of June 12th, 2024. Are there any amendments? Hearing none, may I have someone to move the motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Crisanti.
Seconded by Warren.
Seconded by Warren. Thank you both. Be it resolved that the June 12, 2024 closed session minutes as presented are approved. Steve, item number 7, that's a review of action items. Any discussion or any Does anyone have any comments? No, having heard none, let us move to the item number 8. That is CEOs of the day update. Tom.
Yes, thank you, Lawrence. And through the chair to the committee, I don't have a lot in terms of the update to this committee, but just a reminder to the importance of our cybersecurity and certainly with the staff and our board members ensuring that that they complete the education for cybersecurity. We know that we are kind of continually being monitored. I think just last week there was another phishing exercise that was undertaken by TCHC. So this work is moving forward with real focus and just understanding how important it is to us, kind of both corporations, that being TCHC and certainly the city. So we want just to absolutely do our part by completing the training. Also, although it is on 2 items which are on the agenda today around just some kind of high-level comments around the enterprise risk management and then subsequently the 2025 budget. We had a presentation, we being our extended leadership team today from the consultants on the enterprise risk management. And, I know this has been the area of risk management has been a focus of the board, ever since kind of the inception of the corporation, ensuring that we have the proper kind of policy and framework in place. And so pleased that that work is really kind of seriously underway at this point, and you'll hear more about that in the meeting. But as we indicated, kind of in the strategic directions and within my kind of goals for this year, and then moving into next, dealing with this area of enterprise risk management, and then subsequently, what's going to happen around business continuity and plans and other areas. So I think you'll appreciate the further information on that today. And just around our budget 2025, we're going to be in, I think, from the city, and I don't know that it's quite as challenging as perhaps 2024, but still, kind of very serious and serious as it relates to the potential deficit for the city, and we'll be hearing more about that. But we certainly have been doing from Toronto Seniors kind of our work and committing to those city timelines around the budget, and you'll hear more from that today. We the intention is to submit a separate a budget as it relates to more refined allocations within the budget. We won't be in the place that we had wanted to be, and we can hear more about that when we're discussing the budget. But we are kind of once again very focused on this for 2025, and understanding just the importance of those timelines and kind of getting participation and kind of real clarity on the preparation for our 2025 budget and submission to the city first draft September 10th. So that's my kind of high level comments on the budget. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Does anyone have any questions for Tom?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I have a question, and sorry I can't put my hand up because I'm dialing in.
That's okay.
Tom, the issue about cybersecurity, and I think we've heard yourself and other senior staff make this point on several occasions, and we've heard the Auditor General present his report, and there were some vulnerabilities. I don't need to necessarily know by name, but can you tell me, I mean, how many members of the board, what percentage of the board has actually completed the training?
I will ask Grant Grant, are you the best person to answer that?
I'm going to ask Carol to help me out with that. I know we've been monitoring that. I believe at the last meeting, we had 3 that were outstanding. I don't know if we've completed it for the other remaining 3.
No.
All right, so that's okay. That's not bad, because I think, I just want to make sure that we seem to be getting there. All right, thanks, appreciate it.
Linda, I saw your hand, sir.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question, and I wonder if there's anything we can do, if there's any barriers for those three. I don't think I'm one of them, but to complete them, that just actually helping to get them completed, because we do need to do our part. I was going to ask the same question.
So if I may, through the chair, there's now going to be 2 individuals, and I've reached out a couple times. So I will be pulling a report this week, and I will advise, and then I will reiterate the importance of completing.
Jim, I could just. Maybe you're muted. Jim, if you can unmute yourself, please.
I have a question as well about the phishing attempts. Do we need to forward them all to IT, or if we see something that looks like a phishing attempt, do we forward it to IT as questionable, or do we just delete it? Because I got one a couple yesterday, I believe, when I first went in, I saw that there was what looked like a phishing attempt, and I just deleted it. But then I thought maybe I should have sent that on to IT to find out if it actually was a phishing attempt. But it all the earmarks of one.
Grant?
So through the chair, Jim, if you're using a Toronto Seniors Housing.ca email, if that's where you're receiving the email, and not all board members have those accounts, but if you are using an account that has Toronto Seniors Housing, then yes, hit the fish alert button and report it to IT. And then they will, and they actually investigate all emails that get reported as phishing.
It's still in my deleted folder, so I can forward it.
That would be great. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
Through the chair, if I may, it depends on how your Outlook is set up. So you may or may not have the fish alert report button that we do, and it will tell you right away whether or not it's actually a phishing attempt. But if you do send a message to IT forwarding the email, they will come back to you and let you know. So either way works.
Okay, thanks. That's good clarification on it.
Thank you. We'll move to next item number 9. That's the Enterprise Risk Management Framework and Plan. Over to you, Grant.
Thank you, Lawrence. Through the chair. So for the committee today, we provided a short report that gives an overview of the Enterprise Risk Management Project or Framework Initiative. And at previous committee meetings, and as Tom noted, we've talked about this particular initiative coming forward. It is embedded in the strategic directions, and it is a piece of work that we've been preparing to do. We actually had prepared to work on this last year, but with capacity and resources last year, we're not able to move this forward. However, we are now in a position where we have retained MNP to help support this work with us. And we went through a process using the provincial vendor of record and did a request for services off of that, and we're able to source MNP to help us with this. And since July, we've had some internal discussions with regards to moving this forward in terms of establishing a project plan and reviewing the next stages for the pieces of work that I'm going to walk through here very quickly. There really are a few high-level deliverables that will come out of this. One of them around this enterprise risk management area is an enterprise risk policy for TSHC. So today we don't have an enterprise risk policy within TSHC, although there was some work done in 2022. Pre-transition policy was never adopted by this corporation. We have actually got a draft policy now that we're working through internally with some of the stakeholders. And as Tom mentioned, we discussed it today with the team and the management team. We will be bringing this forward, this policy, for consideration at the October AFRC, together with MNP to present that. And that's really the first bigger component of the work that's coming along. As a supporting element to that policy is what's called the Enterprise Risk Management Framework, or the overarching sort of component that will detail out the processes, the tools, the reporting that will be associated with this. And within that, the work will be done in the October and November timeline. So this is where we're going to hold more consultations. And some folks here have already been engaged in some meetings. There are still more conversations to be scheduled, where we'll actually get into more specifics around tools to help manage this process. That framework will come back to the Audit, Finance, and Risk Committee as well for review. Subsequent to that, we'll be doing the risk assessment or developing what's called the risk register. And this will be with MNP as well, where they'll actually be taking the framework that's been developed along with the policy and then applying it within our environment and looking to understand the potential likelihood of some of the risks and the impact associated with some of the risks that are identified. And then hopefully working together with us, putting together a plan associated with how to mitigate those risks so that we can have a full picture of not only what are the risks, but how might we address those. And that also will come back to this committee and ultimately be something we'll discuss in the broader context of enterprise risk management as a process going forward for the organization. In terms of the domains or types of risks that we're going to be looking at, although this has not yet been established and will be established through the process that will be upcoming, some of the potential domains of risks that we'll be looking at include business type risks, resource or capacity risks, compliance related risks. So you can think about different things associated with things like our operations and how we provide frontline services to tenants. You can look at things like how our governance helps support decision making and how we've been established in our work with the city. You can think about things like reputational risk and how that might be impacted by some of the domains that we'll be looking at. From a capacity perspective, we'll be looking at things like human resources and finance. So for example, today we'll be talking about our budget. We'll also include technology, even though that's a service provided to us by TCHC, but we've already talked about cybersecurity here as example. And from an overall compliance, we'll be looking at things like regulatory risk, environmental and health and safety related risk, and other potential risks in policy spaces. These are domains that are yet to be finalized for our framework. There'll be opportunities to provide input into these, but I've stated some of these to give you a bit of a sense as to how this could play out in the next stage. We look forward to having future conversations with the committee with regards to this, and our hope and our goal is to have this work completed, primarily most of these deliverables by the end of this year, meaning the development of the policy, the framework, and the risk register by December. And then in early 2025 is when we will bring it back for committee and board in its final state. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Grant. Any questions or comments for Grant?
Yeah, Lawrence, again,
Yes,
it's for Reid. And I mean, I think this is obviously much needed and long overdue. And I'm glad that staff are engaged and we've got MNP on board. I mean, I think one of the issues, and when I met with MNP, I did some reflection with them on this, and I just asked the board and staff to keep this in mind, because I think one of the biggest challenges we have is that we have to look at this risk management framework within the current context of our entanglement with TCHC. And I think, the fact that, we don't have, and these are my words, ultimate control over certain aspects of our operations in many respects it doesn't mitigate the risk, but doesn't provide us with a perspective that will help us to be in control and do what we think needs to be done. And the cyber security one is a good example. So I just want to posit that idea as we kind of think through this, because I think that's probably going to be one of the key consideration as we move forward on this, and when the report comes before this committee and subsequent to the board.
Thank you, Farid. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question to Grant?
Yes, certainly, Warren, go ahead.
Thank you, Grant. I would just be interested if you had any more information about the risk consultant that has been working with the organization on this project, and particularly the risk consultant's experience in organizations that would be similar to us, not-for-profits, socially assisted housing, et cetera, et cetera. Are you comfortable with that they have the necessary background to assist?
Through the chair, yes, thank you, Warren. That's a valid question. And as part of the process that we followed to procure MNP, we actually went through an evaluation of different factors, including references and a presentation. The resources that have been assigned to this, and in addition to their submitted proposal, the resources that have been assigned to this particular project do actually have background in the risk space and particular to social housing. So we do have one of the leads on the project from MNP, and they've also demonstrated that they have a robust practice within their organization to help guide us holistically in this space. So we're confident that we have some folks on the project from their lens that have not only experience on this topic broadly, but also from a housing lens.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no more questions, we'll now move to item number 10. That's a budget update. Over to you, Vince.
Thank you, and through the chair, good afternoon. Today I'm going to present just briefly in terms of the budget update in the public camera session. So as you know, we will be submitting the budget on September 10th, and the document is for your information. And the main key points that we will be submitting on this package, which we'll talk a bit more further through the in-camera, includes essentially 4 big areas of areas that we are addressing in the upcoming budget. One is to essentially request for additional staff and support in the tenant-facing aspect of the operation. Along with that, of course, is to maintain existing services with our seniors portfolio. And of course, also discussion of some of the key drivers and points for next year, including negotiations of collective agreements, and of course, consider some key drivers such as inflation as well, which is sort of the 4 big areas that we consider for the upcoming budget. Along with that as well, we also met with our tenant and tenant members, this tenants, on August the 7th and 8th through 2 sessions, which we receive informative information, mainly in the areas of building security, but also any of the additional staff support and in other programming. That were the sort of the key highlights for our 2 sessions there earlier this month. Sorry, not early this month, early in August. But also from some of the key aspect of upcoming dates, you will find that we will be in conversations. Of course, after the submission on September the 10th, there will be some key administrative reviews with the city, along with the informal budget committee reviews, which will happen in mid-October to about November. And of course, looking to get a sort of a final budget decision somewhere around closer towards the end of December, end of November, early December, and culminating with the budget approval through council in February, mid-February. So that's our timeline. And so from a public perspective, are there any questions relating to the budget update?
Thank you, Vince. Any questions for Vince? Okay, so in that case, we'll go to item number 11. That's the January to July YTD 2024 financial results. Back to you, Vince.
Great. Thank you, and through the chair, for the result for the first 7 months of the year for TSHC through July 31st, 2024, TSHC incurred operating expenses of $26,674,632 on total revenue of $28,567,218 for an excess of revenue over expenses of $1.888833 million, including amortization expense. The excess revenue over expense for the first 7 months contributed to 2 major areas. One, of course, is on the Q2 surplus from TCHC, which we will be discussing on that on the in-camera, but also there were also higher than expected in terms of salary expenses resulting from post-retirement benefits and also other salary band adjustment contingency as well that we've included, which came out to about another $1.6 million higher than anticipated. All of this has sort of looked at in terms of a total contributions of 4.293950. So in terms of the overall cash position, the cash position as of July 31st, we have $1.468269 million in the account, just slightly below our minimum threshold that we would like to have to maintain our monthly cash balance. Along with that as well, there's also accounts receivable and of course accounts payable. Accounts receivable from TCHC of $7.564 million, but also accounts payable to TCHC as well of approximately $2.114 million. Along with that as well, there will be some additional expenses that we're looking to pay, which will include in accounts payable, comprised of all the July activity, which will be processed in the month of August. And there's about $2.2 million in payroll, and there's another $589,000 in pensions and benefits, and vendor payables of $238,000. So that's the information relating to report number 11. Are there any questions relating to the financial result for the first 7 months of this year?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Vince. Good summary. I'm just wondering, the salaries and benefits higher than budgeted, but to the tune of about 1.6 million. How does that happen when we're budgeting? That seems pretty excessive. Then, yeah, it just clears out to me anyway. But I understand retirement things happen, but do we not predict those and identify those in our yearly budgeting?
Thank you, and through the chair, the significant amount of the $1.6 million, there's about 400,000 of that came from the post-retirement obligation and benefits that resulted or provided that input to us in the early part of this year, post the budget approval. So after everything has been completed, we've received additional information from our auditor that these are additional expenses we anticipate. It is only a booking entry that we will review, and of course review that closer towards the end of this year and beginning of next year as well. We're hoping that amount certainly gets reversed, but certainly outside of that as well, there are three other significant items that happen in the year. One of them, of course, is that we've included some salary band adjustments on potentially increases to some of the staff, along with merit increases, vacation payout that we've included at the beginning of the year. And again, the $1.6 million amount result for the first 7 months. There are some things that certainly, like I said, it's still a contingency amount that could be potentially be reversed, but we felt most likely that this is the outcome. And then, of course, finally, the last item, of course, is that we did incur some additional costs for additional staff to support, in this case here, for our front-facing tenant related to the CAF, but also to for the CSE to support our ongoing strategic directions in that area there. So there are some additional costs there, but on top of it, we will retain additional staff or continuous staff to support some of the existing corporate positions that was not filled. And we had to continue to fill due to the fact that we don't have those positions in place. So those are, in a nutshell, the expected increases for the first 7 months of this year.
Okay, no, that's fine, thank you. But moving forward to 2025 budget season, so I guess we'll have a better picture, and so this type of discrepancy won't be something that would happen consistently or could happen again in 2025.
Well, certainly we were hoping through the chair in 2025's budget. The goal is that, if we can encapsulate and include all of the adjustment, but also as you're aware, we did incur some additional surpluses as a result of that as well. But certainly from 2025 perspective, from a budgetary aspect of things, we will ensure that it'll be tightened a bit further. The biggest component of here, of course, is that, there are some costs, in this case here, that we've requested through the city for, at the time anyway, for support. And I think the other areas where they also came through that we did not anticipate was, of course, is on the held vacancy and the gapping, of course. We left a very high held vacancy of 7% coming into the year. And so certainly, we did not meet that expectation for the first 7 months of this year. So moving forward, we are looking at a more balanced approach. But of course, this was an outcome to sort of balance the 2024 budget. But, back to your point earlier,
Yeah.
we will,
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Any other questions for Vince?
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I mean, that's Councillor Christianity's point. I mean, is what sort of caught my eye as well. And I understand the unpredictability of some of these, but I think it might be better if we separate them out. So clearly, some of them are predictable, and the others that are not. I think we should identify that. So maybe, rather than the way it shows up now is that, this $1.6 million just stands out. And I understand the explanation, Vince, but I think it might be better for transparency purposes if we are able to sort of clearly articulate what are some of the unexpected costs that were not predictable, but certainly some of them were certainly predictable and should have been.
Excellent point, Fareed. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Fareed. Jim?
Under additional income, there's $10,000 listed from a vendor. What would that be for?
Through the chair, this $10,000 that we received was a compensation for work related to one of the buildings that one of the tenants, also one of the vendor provided some sort of as a compensation. So it was a one-time amount that we received. Both TSHC and TCHC receive this sort of $10,000 payment that came through, I believe it was in the first, was in the early part of second quarter. And it was a sort of what we consider to be a one-time. We don't anticipate this as being ongoing, but it was an exceptional one-time amount that we received from the vendor.
Thanks. It's kind of stood out to me as to what it would be. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any other questions? If you don't have any further questions, let's move to item number 12. That's a procurement post-purchase approval request. Vince, over to you again.
Thank you. And through the chair, for the first 6 months of this year, there were 4 purchases made. That was a combined amount of $40,500 that did not have what we consider to be a purchase order, and these were exception. And these 4 items included 2 from the actuarial work for the consultants to assess our post-retirement, and 1 for KPMG for the audit, and the other one for legal representation, amounted to a total again of $40,500. We will discuss in camera the other 2 PPAR that outside of our regular normal business that we had to do to get the post-purchase approval requests, and we can discuss that in the in-camera session there. Are there any questions in the meantime for the 4 purchases that was made outside of the purchase order?
Okay, since we don't have any questions, let's move to item number 13. It's time for us to move into a closed session. I need a motion to move into closed session.
Don't move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Warren and seconded by Jim. So it carries. Yeah. May I ask?
And we are ending live stream.
Yeah.
And